Stand up.
Stop making issues out of black and white. Let's concentrate on right and wrong.
And now, our voices today.
Why are we led by our pride? We shouldn't let them block the path to our hearts and
Hello, welcome to the program. This is our Voices Today on 95.9 FM Burton Bell Carr Community Radio. Our Voices United. Did I say that already? I'm TC Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a wonderful program arranged for you, courtesy of the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Yes, it is that third Thursday of the month where we have a conversation about your rights, life, and the law with our friends from Legal Aid. And two wonderful legal aid representatives. We'll find out what they actually do in a moment, but we're going to talk about some good stuff about your rights in just a little bit. I hope that everyone has had an opportunity to drink some clean, fresh water today. I hope you've had the chance to eat some tasty and nutritious food. First of all, let me backtrack. Clean, fresh, and alive water. I hope you've had the chance to eat some tasty, nutritious, high vibrational food. I am still working on that, for real. But even though, some of us don't like watermelon with no seeds, listen, I'm taking what I can get. If it's a good replacement for cake, then, I'm just going to go with it until watermelon actually comes in season and we can find the ones with the black seeds, which people say is the real thing. So what do you think? You can feel free to share your thoughts on anything you hear on this radio station, anything you hear or see out in the community, in your life. You can tell us about it or ask a question by texting or leaving a voicemail at 216-200-7848, 216-200-7848. And we'll get right back with you. There are a couple people who regularly use the WOVU talkback line. Really appreciate y'all. And so, yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Let me just let's just wing it here because technology is not working with me right now. So I'm just gonna bring on our two guests from Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Please welcome our friends. Our friends, tell us who you are.
My name is Liz. I am a paralegal at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, and I'm here with...
I'm Jen. I'm a senior attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland in our Health and Opportunity Practice Group.
Jen, you've been here before?
We have both been here before talking about St. Vincent and our medical legal partnership there.
I had blonde hair when I came, so that's probably why.
And I will be honest with you, when people change their hair, I do not recognize them at all. But it's been a while, though.
It has been a while, yes.
Yeah, well, welcome back, both of you, our friends. And so let's reintroduce ourselves. Just take a moment to do that. Talk to us, a little bit about who you are and your journey in the positions you are now with Legal Aid.
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic, and I started at Legal Aid in September of 2020. I started as a paralegal for our St. Vincent Medical Legal Partnership, and since then I have transitioned to not only MLP work, but public benefits, primarily SNAP benefits, a focus on reentry, which we're going to talk about today. And yeah, so I'm in the Health and Opportunity group with Jen as well. Jenna has been at Legal Aid a lot longer than I have, so I'll let her share too.
I came to Legal Aid in March of 2018, specifically for the Medical Legal Partnership with St. Vincent Charity. Since the hospital closed in November and kind of transitioned to an outpatient facility, Liz and I are still there. But we have partially transitioned our practice to public benefits work. Okay. So SNAP, Social Security, veterans benefits. But we both also largely focus on reentry and reentry initiatives and helping to remove barriers to reentry. So with Reentry Week coming up, we wanted to come chat with you about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. When is Reentry Week?
So Cuyahoga County Office of Reentry puts on Reentry Week every year, the last week in April. So that will be next week, April 23rd through 29th. Right. And there's events all throughout the week, including a cooking competition, some family fun events, an expungement and job fair, and then there are some informational sessions as well. We have all of these events on our website. If people want to go to lasclev.org/reentry week 2023, and reentry is spelled REENTRY.
Awesome. So April 23rd through the 29th, next week is Reentry Week, where we give attention to those coming back into civilian life from incarceration.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the events that we'll be experiencing or have available next week.
So there is a cooking competition, which is put on, I believe, by the ladies with Chopping for Change. Okay. And so they'll do a cooking competition. There's a family reunification event with some family fun activities, but there's also more informational and educational sessions that are maybe not as fun but equally as important, talking about expungement, fair chance hiring, fair chance housing, and it's intended for people with lived experience who are reentering themselves, family members of people with lived experience, but also community members and people in positions to kind of change those barriers. So it's really a week for everyone and anyone who is interested in supporting our community members who are reentering.
Okay, so this isn't just for those re-entering, it's for all of us.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure all of us have close contact with someone who has been in that situation, coming out of incarceration. Can you give us some statistics, about reentry and how maybe programming like this helps prevent, recidivism?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no secret that mass incarceration is a huge problem in the United States nationally, but also in Ohio. So some specific stats are that during the 2 weeks following release from incarceration, the mortality or the likelihood to die rate among individuals is 12.7 times the rate of the general population. And that elevated risk of death actually does continue for as long as 2 years. So what we want to talk about today is how important access to healthcare is, and these stats really highlight that because there is a huge negative impact on health. And in 2015, there was a study that found that each year spent in prison corresponded with a 2-year reduction in life expectancy. So not only does incarceration impact your day-to-day life, you are removed from your community, but it also impacts your health as well as your well-being and your mental health and all of those things. And we know that people of color are overrepresented in prison compared to their population. So that means that these negative impacts also disproportionately affect that population as well. And lastly, I will put the stats away after this, but
Ohio,
Ohio's incarcerated aging population, so that is 50 years or older, has actually sharply increased over the past 15 years. So we have, our elders are increasingly incarcerated or growing old in prison. And obviously as you get older, your health automatically kind of declines, so incarceration only fastens that process.
Wow 12.7% more likely to die if you've been incarcerated than those who haven't. And that's based on what you told us, because of the impacts on health and wellness.
So I think it's health and wellness. I think it's also just the barriers, the inability to return to safe, stable housing, the inability to find employment that's resulting in risky behavior or recidivism that draws attention to law enforcement or other individuals who can cause harm. So I think it's a lot of factors, but 12.7 times more likely to die than a non-incarcerated peer is a really significant number.
Yeah. Wow. It leaves me a bit speechless. And then talking about the aging population of incarcerated people has increased is, I'm sure that has something to do with the laws that created more opportunities for people to get caught up in the system, and therefore, the system's not being easy to get yourself out of. So many conversations on WOVU about, the bail bond system and how that keeps people in jail. Just the time that you are in jail awaiting for your case to be heard. It's just, it's quite disheartening, that we have a system that says it's for justice, but it does such injustices to those who are get caught up in it. Wow. And so back to the aging population. Am I on the right track with, the reason why there is such an increase in the aged population of incarcerated people?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have a stat for this, but I feel like it's just general knowledge that once you come in contact with the criminal legal system and you enter incarceration, it is extremely hard to get out of that cycle. And that is definitely impacted by all of the barriers that you face when you get out. You can't find stable housing. Like Jen said, there are so many barriers and so many doors shut in your face when you're just trying to, get back to community life. And there's also a ton of trauma involved in being incarcerated, and the whole process is extremely traumatizing. And our aging population, I think you're on the right track with mandatory minimum sentencing, and people are incarcerated for longer periods of time, and they're aging in prison. And when they get out, if you go in at 30 and you get out at 65, that's a huge. The world is completely different. So, there are a ton of barriers, and
including to employment. Once you have anything on your criminal record, much less having served time, that does get in the way often. And let's take a break, and when we come back, we can talk more about that, and also about expungement. One of the events for next week's Reentry Week, April 23rd through the 29th, is an expungement clinic. A lot of people have misconceptions about expungement, so I'll ask those questions for them as we take this break on the Our Voices Today program. Life in the Law, conversations about your rights. Our friends from Legal Aid are here talking to us about Reentry Week. We will be right back after these messages. This is 95.9 FM WOVU.
How will we ever to never stop fighting. Don't ever quit, just cause the rich get richer and the poor don't get. Excuse me, but I get so mad. Where could we have been? What could we?
In the car, on your phone, when you leave home, you're never alone. Download the 95.9 FM WOVU mobile app for your Apple or Android mobile device.
Tri-C requests your presence at its Integrated Facilities Plan Community Listening Session on Thursday, March 30th at the Jerry Sue Thornton Center, 2500 East 22nd Street from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. In this community listening session, you'll hear members of Tri-C's Capital, Construction, and Facilities Department along with DLR Group discuss the college's 10-year Integrated Facilities Plan. The plan will lay out Tri-C's vision for its physical resources, capital planning, and campus improvements over the next 10 years. Learn about Tri-C's goals to strengthen relationships between its 4 campuses, its partners, and neighboring communities. Also, hear how Tri-C will use data to make informed decisions on how to spend those capital improvement dollars. Make sure your ears are clear and be present and accounted for at Tri-C's Integrated Facilities Plan Community Listening Session on March 30th at 5:30 p.m. at the Jerry Sue Thornton Center, 2500 East 22nd Street. This message is brought to you by Tri-C and 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United, Burton Belcar Community Radio.
Do you have basic questions related to employment, unemployment, or student loans? Call Legal Aid's Economic Justice Information Line at 216-861-5899. Leave a short message with your question and a Legal Aid representative will return your call. That's 216-861-5899.
This message is brought to you by the Legal Aid Society and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Belcar community radio station.
It's time to make the short story longer, yeah.
Welcome back to the program. This is Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United. Say that 5 times fast. I'm TC Lewis. You are your wonderful self. You have joined us in the midst of a conversation about your rights when we talk with our friends from Legal Aid about life and the law. Today, more life. You know, Reentry Week is happening next week, where we put the spotlight on our friends who are coming out of incarceration. Resources for them, but also resources for us who are supporting them, or maybe thinking of hiring them. You know, that is one of the barriers to getting back into the swing of regular life after being locked up. 12.7% more likely to die you are if you've been incarcerated than those who haven't. And, you know, due to things, you know, lack of access to healthcare. We're going to talk about employment in a moment. Let's see, what else did we say? And other supports, right? So, and I'm sure they'll come up again. But let's talk about employment. Really, I grew up thinking that I knew that the worst thing that could happen to you is if you got a felony on your record. All these people with felonies that I knew, like my peers or other adults, you know, as a child, or even just watching television, you know, any kind of getting anything on your record above a misdemeanor, even that wasn't so great. It would keep you from being able to do things, especially get certain jobs. You know, so talk to us about that and how that impacts someone coming out, and what are ways to work around that? And I know one of those is expungement.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to what you said about even misdemeanors being harmful. So I also had the same, felony would prevent you from being hired, but also minor misdemeanors and misdemeanors can as well, unfortunately. And so, Jen, I don't know if it's like a couple hundred.
So it's like, so a minor misdemeanor, which is the lowest level offense you could possibly get. It's like a disorderly conduct. A lot of folks will just plead to a minor misdemeanor because they don't want something that's a problem on their record. And a minor misdemeanor conviction in the state of Ohio automatically bars you from over 300 jobs.
Wow.
So while minor misdemeanors are generally much easier to seal or expunge, they're a problem, and the number only increases based on the severity of the crime. And then there are certain crimes like offenses of violence, sex offenses, and traffic offenses that can't be sealed no matter what you do. And those obviously carry bars. And those are statutory or legal bars. There's nothing any employer could do to hire you if you have those convictions.
What are some of those 300, occupations that we would be familiar with?
I believe barber is on there.
Barber?
Yeah. For barber licenses, there are certain convictions you cannot have. There are just some jobs at the Postal Service. I can look on the next break for the website folks can go to check what their conviction would bar them from. But I mean, it's a huge problem all the way down to the lowest level offense. The good news is that the law changed in Ohio in April, so this month.
Oh, okay.
The law actually got substantially more broad in terms of what can be sealed and who can seal offenses. So that would be my first plug, is if in the past you've been told that you can't seal your record, call us again and have us relook at that, because many, many more people are eligible for sealing under the new law that just became effective on April 4th.
Okay.
Liz, do you want to talk a little bit about sealing?
Yeah, so previously, the law was very strict. You had to kind of go through two different analysis. The first was whether you are an eligible offender, and I'm saying that in air quotes because I know you can't see me, but that is the language that the law used. And so the first part is to see if the person was eligible so you would review their entire criminal history, and they would have to meet certain factors like no more than 2 felonies, no more than 2 misdemeanors, something like that. That's not the actual law. But so you would have to go through that. And then if you got through that criteria, you would then have to go and see what specific offenses that you have were eligible to be sealed. The good news is, like Jen was saying, the law recently changed, and now that first criteria, that eligible offender criteria, no longer exists.
Okay.
And so that means that you just go right into looking at the individual convictions that someone has. And so those also, you can seal arrest records, you can seal or dismissals, non-convictions. Jen, the legal terms, but just because it's not a conviction, but it's on your record and people can see it, you can seal that as well. This can be really helpful in background checks for like landlords or employers, but we typically hear this in finding housing because people like landlords might not necessarily know arrest record, a non-conviction versus a conviction, and they might treat that equally. So that is, we always want to plug expungement and sealing. They're actually 2 different things, but both are very, very helpful in reducing barriers to housing and employment. And there is an expungement clinic and job fair on Saturday, April 29th. It's during Reentry Week at 11 a.m., and it says that this event will provide an opportunity for eligible citizens to get their criminal records expunged and be connected to jobs. Join for fun. Join for food. I inserted the fun part. Join for food, music, expungement screening, and applications, on-the-spot job interviews with second chance employers. And second chance employers are employers that have committed to hiring people with criminal records. And prizes and more. It's hosted at John F. Kennedy High School, 15111 Miles Avenue in Cleveland. So definitely would encourage folks to go there. They can also contact Legal Aid as well.
Yeah. And so those details you can find on the Legal Aid website, LASCLEV.org. They're shaking their heads through, helping me through that. LASCLEV.org. Is the website for Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, where you can find the roster of events that expungement clinic Saturday, April 29th for Reentry Week. There's lots of other good things during that week, and we'll touch on those before we wrap up the show, which is not for quite a while. So don't worry. But I wanted to just clarify the differences between sealing and expungement. So sealing is just blocking individuals who would normally be able to see that information from having access to it.
So the way we describe it is that getting your record sealed is like putting it in a file in a filing cabinet that's locked. So it still definitely exists. The people with the key to that filing cabinet can access it at any time. So in reality, that's people like the government. Like if you wanted security clearance for the military, they could go in there. Anyone in health professions could go in and look at your record. Professional licensing boards can go in and look at your record. Expungement, on the other hand, I describe it like your record is vaporized. So if your record is expunged, no one has it anymore. It used to be before this April that in Ohio, the only individuals who could expunge their record were juveniles and victims of human trafficking, where the crime or the criminal conviction was related to the trafficking. Now, under the new regulation, there is opportunity for expungement for all offenders for certain offenses, and there's also the opportunity for sealing. So to know best what you're eligible for, we recommend coming to an expungement clinic or calling us at Legal Aid. We'll go over your full record and we'll go over each conviction with you and let you know what should be sealed, what can be expunged, but also go over, like Liz said, arrests and non-convictions. A lot of people think, oh, the case was dismissed against me, it's gone. It's not. It still lives there. If someone searches you, it still comes up. So sometimes people are found not guilty of really serious offenses, and an employer looks them up and says, oh my gosh, they were charged with aggravated murder. And despite the fact that they were found not guilty or the charges were thrown out, the person's being judged based on something they were never convicted of. So if you have a case that was thrown out or something, still contact us because that should be automatically sealed, but you have to file a motion for that to happen.
Wow. So even just arrests, non-convictions, as you mentioned earlier, affect outcomes when we're trying to access certain things. Wow. So everybody should just be going just to make sure that they don't have something, there could be things on your record, like you said, you don't expect them to be there, and things maybe you forgot about. I don't know. But certainly something we can check out during Reentry Week next week, April 29th, Saturday, at John F. Kennedy High School on Miles Avenue from 11 to 3. That's just a hot topic, so I wanted to focus on that event. But do we need to bring anything? Like, is it good to bring documents? Of course, maybe your ID.
Yes, I think, if you have any printouts from the court or any, like your tickets or any records, that's helpful. I think there will be internet access and the ability to look at records and double check things. But I think if you're planning on going and you really want to make it as quick as possible, any records you have about, probation, parole, any fines or costs that haven't been paid, I think that's important to note, is you have to be caught up on your fines and costs to be eligible for these things. If you're not sure, that's something that we can check for you and let you know. You have fines and costs that have to be paid, but any court records that you have and your ID, if you have one, I don't think that not having an ID should be a barrier at all to coming. It's just helpful if you do have one.
Yeah, and I would just say with all of these, it's very complicated, and it's very dependent on the specific person and their specific circumstances. So, if you've heard anything today where you're like, yeah, I think that might prevent me from being able to, we would still encourage you to come, because it's very individualized, and like Jen was saying, if you have fines or costs, if some of that is court costs, a lawyer might be able to argue that should not bar you, things like that. So we would just say, please reach out. The law recently just changed, and it is a great resource, but it's also, that's why Reentry Week is so important. It's not just for the people who could benefit from expungement, but it's also great for community members to learn that this is an issue, and connect with their community members in that way. So
it's good information to have. And whether you need it, you may never need it, but you might know someone who would benefit from you sharing that with them. So Reentry Week, not just for those who have been incarcerated or seeking resources, but for the entire community. Just great information. Let's talk about some of the events that focus on like the positive stuff, maybe even the fun stuff. You mentioned Chop for Change cooking competition. That's happening Tuesday, April 25th, from 11 to 2 is it at Edwin's? Or is that two different events? I don't think it says where it is.
Yeah, some of these legal aid is not directly in charge of planning, but
well, I guess you have to register.
Sure.
So once you register, you probably get all that information. But that's a fun thing.
Yeah, I've never actually been to it, but it's every year, and I've heard it's really, really great. So if registration is still open, it is April 25th. Definitely would encourage people to go to that as well. There's also a Youth Justice for You event on April 27th at 10 a.m. And it does address expungement as well, but it's directly for juvenile court records. And it's about educating that those records don't just go away when you turn a certain age. And, like Jen was saying, it's not automatic, and you actually have to take that initiative. So this is a really good event for anybody with a juvenile record. It's hosted at North Star Neighborhood Reentry Resource Center at 1834 East 55th Street in Cleveland.
All right. Youth Justice for You. If you got in trouble when you were a kid, I guess people can still see that and judge you. This is just so, sorry, I don't want to go into my let's be humans soapbox, but it's just unfortunate that we need things like this, and that it's very unfortunate that prisons can't be farms. So moving on. Let's talk about Reentry Week. Just reiterating, it is next week, April 23rd through April 29th, and you can get all the details on the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland's website, lasclev.org. And this is Reentry Week is put on, put on, so to speak, by the Cuyahoga County Health and Human Services department, so shout out to them.
Yeah, they actually have a specific office of reentry, which is a great resource as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Hero Project. So hang on that cliff. You got to find out what the Hero Project is. Jen and Liz from Legal Aid Society are here with us, and we'll be right back. This is Our Voices Today, conversation about your rights, life, and the law with our friends from Legal Aid. Stay tuned.
If we fighting. Don't ever quit just 'cause the rich.
We are Signal Cleveland.
I'm Najee Hall, and I look forward to seeing you, and yes, you in community.
I'm Lila Parker. I look forward to growing with the Central residents.
My name is Tila, and I'll be around the Central neighborhood. Look forward to seeing you outside.
Hi, I'm Marvetta Rutherford. You may also know me as the Crazy Lock Lady. I'm looking forward to finding out what's important to you.
I'm Lakita Worley, and I look forward to re-engaging with everyone from Central Community.
For the next 2 months, you can find us at community events and gathering spaces around Central in collaboration with our radio partner, WOVU 95.9 FM.
And we want to know what's important to you.
We want to understand what issues are important to Central residents so we can report on issues you care about.
Signal Cleveland is a community-centered newsroom, and our name is a nod to Garrett Morgan, the noted Cleveland inventor and businessman.
Among his many successful inventions was the 3-position traffic signal, which influenced the traffic signal we use today. Morgan also started the newspaper that eventually became the Call and Post.
Now that's show enough history, and it's our history.
Najee again, Signal Cleveland is also a nod to Ohio's role in the Underground Railroad.
Cleveland, known as the Station of Hope on the Railroad, was the last stop before Canada. On the freedom quilts reportedly used to mark the way, the crossroads symbol meant Cleveland, and that's how folks knew they were on the right path.
Yes, indeed. Signal Cleveland is on the right path.
The path of getting to know you.
The crossroad symbol inspired our Cleveland Signal news logo.
Look for our Crossroads logo at a community event near you.
I'm Lakita. Tell us what's important to you.
I'm Marvetta.
I'm Tila.
I'm Lila Parker.
And I'm Najee Hall. Tell us what's important to you at 216-220-9398. That's 216-220-9398.
We are Signal Cleveland.
It's time to make the short story longer. Yeah.
Welcome back to the program. This is Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM WOVU. Our Voices United. And I was about to say it's Reentry Week, but that's next week. Next week, our friends from Legal Aid, Liz and Jen, are here with us. Jen is an attorney and Liz is a paralegal. I got it right. They're shaking. They're nodding. They're nodding in agreement. We are here. You know, I'm TC. I'm always very silly, and but we're talking about a serious thing: reentry, and the events that are happening next week at various locations. You know, conversations which we didn't mention yet, but there's some panel discussions on reentry in the community. There's one Wednesday, April 26th at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, 4515 Superior Avenue at 9 a.m. And let's see, what's the other one? There's a restored, well, first of all, the Charles R.C. Forum on Reentry, Friday, April 28th. But lest we forget to mention the family reunion event, although it's about something really serious. It's a family reunion, restorative justice, resources, and family fun activities. Tell us real quick, what's restorative justice?
I think restorative justice to us means, repairing the well, I think that event, Legal Aid isn't a part of hosting it, but that event is really geared towards repairing those relationships with families, which can be destroyed by going to prison or jail. But I would say restorative justice generally is really focus on addressing the barriers to reentry and sort of kind of restoring you and individuals to what you were and the resources you had before you entered. I don't know if Jen, if you have a different idea of it, but that's what I would say.
No, I think that that's correct. I think that the concept is basically reversing to whatever extent possible the harm created by involvement with the legal system.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen, accurate or not, examples of that on some like maybe television programs, like news style programs of families sitting with the offender and having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yes, that it's a family reunion, restorative justice resources and family fun activities at Magnet. Mr. Williams loves Magnet. It's the manufacturing education center on East 63rd and Chester from 3 to 6 p.m. You can and there's a very awesome playground. I see why they put that event there, the family fun activities. Yes. So at any time, you should definitely check out that playground at Magnet, but definitely on Thursday, April 27th, for Reentry Week, brought to you by the Cuyahoga County Health and Human Services Reentry Office of Reentry. I think I'm getting nods of approval again. So let's talk about the HERO Project. It's something special in the realm of healthcare for reentering citizens.
Yeah. So HERO Project stands for Health Equity for Reentering Ohioans. It's a project of the staff and some volunteers at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. And the way it all came about is that a couple years ago now, one of our public benefits attorneys approached a group of staff working on reentry issues and said, I have this client who turned 65 while incarcerated, and because of that, he was unable to enroll in Medicare. And now that he is out in the community and trying to enroll in Medicare, his late enrollment penalty is so high that he can't afford health care. And she was wondering if our group would be willing to look into this. So we did. We created a small, essentially task force of folks to start looking into issues around access to health care after incarceration. And we found a mess. What started as a small Medicare-related issue quickly over the past couple of years has grown into a very large issue related to access to Medicaid, access to medication, access to health care. And so last year, we were operating under some special funding to research the issue. And last June, our group published a 34-page, so very long, heavy reading issue brief on all of the issues we identified related to accessing healthcare after leaving incarceration. And the group is now really working on finding clients. So we are looking for individuals who had Medicaid when they went to jail or prison, and that Medicaid was suspended or terminated. And so therefore, when they left, they didn't have access to health care. That's not the way the law is written. That's not what should be happening. We know it is happening. So if that has happened to you or someone you care about, please call us at Legal Aid. That is not okay. But also, reentry planning is supposed to start at the very latest 30 days before release. So I think if anyone is listening and has a loved one or a family member, that's a question to be asking your loved one is anybody talking to you about having health coverage? Because, we know that 12.7 times more likely statistic, and some of that has to do with folks who had a chronic medical condition identified while incarcerated. So they might start taking blood pressure medication, let's say. If they've been taking that for years while incarcerated and then they return home with no access to that medication, they're going to see very quick, very serious effects from that. That's the same for people getting treatment for any sort of condition. So the HERO Project, Health Equity for Reentering Ohioans at Legal Aid, is a team of doctors, doctors, volunteers, care providers from the community like case managers, chemical dependency counselors, paralegals. I mean, it's a very robust group, and we were just joined by the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office as well. So I guess our call is two things. If you're in the community and you're working with this population and you'd like to join the HERO Project, please reach out to Legal Aid. But if you are trying to reenter and having healthcare related issues, also that's not okay, and it is not, lack of access to healthcare should not be a collateral consequence of going to jail, and we want to talk to you.
What about, like, Medicaid can't terminate someone for being incarcerated? They can?
They can. So go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so there are two different options, and in Ohio, your Medicaid is supposed to be suspended, and that sort of means to be turned off for your period of incarceration.
Okay.
So it should not be it should not be terminated, but it is. So for this suspension, it should be if you are incarcerated for 30 days or longer, your Medicaid should go into that suspended status while you are incarcerated, because Medicaid is not allowed to pay for health care while you are incarcerated. So once you leave, it's supposed to be turned back on. And unfortunately, this process is what we found, a manual process, which relies on somebody to actually go into whatever system.
Probably click a checkbox.
Yes, something very, very simple, but it requires an actual person to do it. And so that leads to people falling through the cracks and, them leaving incarceration without their Medicaid turned back on. And they don't find out about that until they go to fill their necessary prescription. They need to go to their doctor, all of those things, and they don't have health care. And if someone realizes while they're already released and they're trying to fill their prescription, they can't just call JFS, the Ohio Department of Medicaid. They need the jail or the prison to send that signal to the public benefit agency. So it's also a huge barrier that even once you realize that when you get out, it's not in your power to fix it. You have to rely on a prison system or a jail that, to be honest, once you've left, they have no obligation to kind of fix anything.
Wow.
So that leads to a huge issue, and especially in jails, we know that you can leave at any time. It could happen very quickly. It's not like you have 30 days notice that you're going to be leaving. It can happen overnight. So that is a huge issue as well.
Well, that is very enlightening. One thing that strikes me is that Medicaid is not allowed to pay for health care while you're incarcerated. So then my question is, who pays for it?
So if an individual needs inpatient hospital care, like needs a surgery or something while incarcerated, then the government will pay for that. But generally speaking, this is goes to a huge problem of healthcare while incarcerated. Like in Cuyahoga County, it's a taxpayer-funded partnership with Metro Health, and that's going to differ based on facility, whether it's a private health care contract, whether it's a government health care contract. But there's federal regulation that does not allow Medicaid to pay for health care of incarcerated people. And one of our volunteers on the HERO Project is an oncologist who tells stories of folks who were proposed for a compassionate release from incarceration because they were terminally ill with cancer, and they actually refused release. They didn't want to die with dignity in the community because they knew they wouldn't have health coverage and they wouldn't be able to afford the care they needed. So they prefer to stay and die in a cell where they have health care, as opposed to getting released into the community where they know they won't have it.
Wow.
And I think that really personalizes the severity of this situation.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible that a person would rather stay incarcerated because their life would be better than if they were to be released, because they would not have access to health care.
Yeah.
That is just astonishing. Let's see. So, can we get involved with, can regular people help with the Hero Project, or is this strictly, kind of professional initiative?
No, we need all the help we can get. When we started this project 2 years ago, when we started reaching out in the community, very few people were aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if this sparks interest in anyone, we want you to call us.
Mm-hmm.
We can use help learning who can we come out and present to? Who can we show these materials to? How can we spread our message in your community? We have flyers. If you have a place we can display those or drop those off, we want to know about that.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to have listening sessions for people who've been affected by this, and we didn't have attendees. So, if you're part of a group or a citizen circle or, a church group that has members who've been affected by this, we'll come and do a listening session and just hear how this is affecting you and offer ways we can help.
Mm-hmm.
We really need the whole community to make the Hero Project work. Like I said, at this stage, we're really pushing to get care providers who might see these people in their office as kind of our current phase, but we need everybody. So if this is striking a chord with anyone, we would love for you to join us.
So what number should we call? The intake line, or?
Yeah, I would call the intake line and say that you heard about the Hero Project and you want to be connected. You can say my name. You can say with Jen from the Hero Project, or just you want to talk to someone on the Hero Project. And we will make sure that happens, and we can send a message to intake today and let them know to be on the lookout for those calls. So that number is 888-817-3777.
Okay, one more time. Can you say that?
888-817-3777.
All right. Yeah, if you want to get involved with the Hero Project, it's a really great thing that this is getting attention. It's not great that we have to pay attention to it, that it exists as an issue or a problem, but good people definitely working on this for a population that is really just left by the wayside in many respects. So dignity of life, we all have the right to be healthy and live well lives. And it shouldn't be, once you're incarcerated and you get released, you do all your fines and your time, you shouldn't have to be continuously punished for that, through these, all the barriers you mentioned, especially healthcare. It's just this world is weird. That's all I could say.
That's one word for it.
Yeah. So thank you, Liz and Jen, for coming by and talking with us. Anything coming up with legal aid that maybe we want to be on the lookout for? Besides, of course, Reentry Week next week, April 23rd through 29th.
Yeah, so after you have your fun at Reentry Week, I don't know them off the top of my head, but we have a webpage on our website that has all of our upcoming events. We have brief advice clinics.
Yes, I got the page right here.
All right.
Yes. So today is April 20th.
Yes.
And so Saturday, April 22nd, there is a naturalization clinic for help with citizenship applications, 9 to 11 a.m. at Legal Aid, downtown Cleveland office, 1223 West 6th Street. Yes. And then another one on Thursday, April 27th, from 4 to 5 p.m. all the way in Jefferson, Ohio. You guys cover a lot of distance.
5 counties.
Yeah, 5 counties. So shout out to our friends in Jefferson. But we have the Reentry Week next week on the same day as the expungement clinic. Happens to be estate planning clinic. So, the law touches, so many parts of our lives that we don't even really think about until it's probably too late to be thinking about it, but legal aid there to help. Free legal advice at the brief advice clinics. Call the intake line if you are dealing with something that a legal issue that affects your fundamental human needs, safety, housing, food, education, employment, government benefits, basically anything you could think of, to be honest with you. And if you don't know, give legal aid a call. You can dial 211 or you can call 888-817-3777. Okay, wasn't sure if this was just specific number, but I got it. Call 1-888-817-3777 or visit the website at lasclev.org. Thanks, Liz and Jen.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you, Laura Klingler, for doing all the heavy lifting. Shout out to you. And thank you to our listening audience for joining us. Have a wonderful time. And we'll see you next time. See ya.